that would be a very different use of the term cancel culture, sure. But it's quite in line with what the new government pitched during its year-and-a-half-long campaign against the old government to topple it from power, and then during the election season. So I think that rhetoric is unsurprising. What might be more surprising would be what happens when some of these rotations happen within the ministries as planned within this new government. For example, if you look at the finance ministry, incoming finance minister Bezalel Smotrich said that he actually will continue on with a lot of the kind of hard cuts and fiscal responsible fiscal management. So that
plastic plates getting the attention, but
right. But the real meat and potatoes of it will be quite similar to the free market reforms that former finance minister Avigdor Lieberman pushed. And Smotrich himself said that the canceling the plastic tax was to fulfill a political promise, and that, quote, it's important to fulfill your political promises to neighbors. However, to partners. What is going to be most surprising is when Smotrich in 2 years rotates out that ministry and hands it over to Shas's Aryeh Deri, who is probably the most socialist member of this coalition, and what will happen to Israel's finance policy then might be actually more striking than what we see in a government changeover.
You know, I mentioned that the tourism minister Chaim Katz. I mean, yes, he's talking about some things that resonate. Yeah, we need more hotel options around this country. But he's also talking about developing the West Bank.
As Israel's Tuscany.
Yes, as Israel's Tuscany, you referred to it. So, I mean, there's this element of controversy in there even. Do you expect, just an example, the boundaries to be pushed? I mean, are they, this new government, I mean, the things they're going to be doing, what's your sense, following this? That we're going to see a lot of that sort of, ruffling the feathers in a way?
It depends on whose feathers you kind of define as the standard to be ruffled. But this new government has been very clear that it has certain policy changes that will be markedly different from the past one. West Bank settlements will be one, pursuing the option of annexation attached to that, evaluating the law of return, which is sort of Israel's seminal connection between itself and the Jewish diaspora, a law that guarantees citizenship to Jews in the world as well as their children and grandchildren, looking to constrain that to only allow in people who are halachically Jewish, according to Jewish law, Jewish.
It's causing a huge stir.
There's some very big changes that might be abreast. That being said, Likud has partnered with far-right and ultra-Orthodox parties, has made these promises. Whether or not they will actually allow them to come to fruition remains to be seen. We have to remember Likud is the largest party in this coalition, and it finds itself in this uncomfortable position being the leftmost party. So Likud will see a lot of challenges on the right, specifically from Smotrich, not as finance minister so much, but in his second capacity as an independent minister in the defense ministry, overseeing settlement policy, from Ben-Gvir in the police ministry, overseeing internal security. This is where we will see the challenges rather than necessarily on the transportation front.
Yeah, so much experimentation that's going on all these fronts. We bring up this thing about changing the law of return, the eligibility of people to, become citizens of Israel. It's creating an uproar already. We're seeing, the heads of major Jewish and pro-Israel organizations across the U.S., just for example, submitting these joint statements and letters of concern. I'm not sure. There's no precedent that comes to mind, as clearly as this sort of joint expression of concern over where things are going. Is that voice from abroad? I mean, how much do you think that's factoring in, to the ears of this government? What's your sense? I know Netanyahu is, good, or at least he's an ear to the world of the diaspora, the wider world. Is it a factor at all for them right now, do you think?
I think there's a larger dynamic at play, and that's the fact that within Israel, most Jews, even non-practicing Jews, are Orthodox Jews, whereas abroad, especially in the U.S., the majority kind of slants more towards reform and conservative streams of Judaism. And that's a gulf that the two populations don't fully understand, that it even exists between them. And so when we look at Israel, Orthodox grip over Judaism and state-controlled Judaism is tightening, especially as signaled by this new government, and this idea of constraining the law of return to make it so that people who are only halachically Jewish, who are Jewish according to matrilineal descent, or their children, that's currently being discussed, could be coming into Israel as Jews, is something that a lot of Orthodox observant Jews in Israel may support, either tacitly or not. And so, yes, I think there's a real tension here that's kind of being unearthed by this discussion. That being said, Likud has made some efforts to kind of lower the flames on this. Rather than committing to pass a specific legal change to law of return, they said instead that they will form a committee to discuss how to preserve Israel's Jewish character and then recommend any specific changes as required.
No, I mentioned a few examples here. I mean, you're covering this breathlessly right now. This is a busy moment for you, so we appreciate your time on the program, despite all the political things swirling around us. What am I missing? I mean, what else? What do you have your eye on right now? What are some things that maybe we're not even hearing about yet that we should be thinking about or concerned about? Where's your attention, on this spectrum of changes that are taking place right now?
So two things. I think the thing that isn't being discussed as much in the international media right now is what is happening within Likud. Likud itself, it's a massive party. There's 32 members of Knesset. That's half of the coalition are Likudniks. There's a lot of dissatisfaction within Likud right now because people are quite disappointed about which roles they had, and there's tension between different parliamentary factions within the party and Netanyahu itself. And so a lot of the dynamics of intra-Likud politics will play a role in terms of what the coalition does or does not do. I think the second factor, something we've discussed quite extensively, but I don't think gets the attention it deserves, and that is judicial reform. This government is committed across all of its 6 parties to put political control firmly over the judicial system. Each party has a different reason for wanting it. However, they all united in the ultimate goal, and that is to put the Knesset over the judiciary.